reading and changing the facts, inventing history. I have called Guatemalan governments before serial killers of agreements. Now I say they are chronic distorters of history. Obviously we can't let them get away with that. And they won't if we're smart and if we unite. The 1859 Treaty also says at Article 6, and I'm quoting, the channels in the waterline at the boundary described in Article 1 of the present Convention shall be equally free and open to the vessels and boats, also military, vessels and boats of both parties. And any islands which may be found therein shall belong to that party on whose side of the main navigable channel they are situated. And as I said, 2 years later, the Guatemalan and the British draw the line under the island of the Assad Shoman, which belongs to us. But that means we have to allow their vessels to freely navigate the river. And they have to allow ours to do the same. The vessels of our military forces, of our fisher folk, of our vacationers. But that doesn't change the boundary. The boundary is immovable, immutable, and we have to ensure that it remains so. Yes, it is true. It is true, as my good friend the Foreign Minister said during the budget debate, that over the years there have been many proposals by the Guatemalans, the British, and the USA to pressure us to change that boundary. But then he also said, and I quote, we in this party, meaning UDP, had never done anything to put this country in jeopardy. But we can't say the same for the other side. End of quote. And that, or rather the implication of that, is not so true. And he made that statement after just having said, quote, this issue is too important to make it a political football, end of quote. So what game was he playing? Big ball? The truth is that Belize has never agreed to bend to that triple-headed pressure Guatemala, US, and Britain. George Price said, not 1 square centimeter. And so far, we have stuck to that without fail, both parties. And we must continue to do so. But I want to say a word here about patriots and people thumping their chests to say how patriotic they are. When a few years ago, they created in a ministry the Department of Patriotism, I got worried. I got nervous. And my worries were confirmed. Soon after that, they formed the Security Intelligence Service, SIS, to deal with external and internal espionage, sabotage, and terrorism. With both the identity and specific duties of the SIS personnel kept secret. They must have been told by the CIA how to do this. CIA who still look back with nostalgia at the glory days of Senator Joe McCarthy, that man there. You can't read what he said, but he said something like in 1950, he accused State Department of having in their employment about 200 people who were communists. He saw communists on everywhere. And then the spooks from the SIS in Belize started shadowing us who were in despair and reporting our crimes, which was popular education, to cabinet. Said it was with me at that time. He can tell you that that is true. It is said that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. I think Samuel Johnson said that. I will listen to your arguments if you listen to mine. I said that. Anyhow, back to the Assad Shoman and the Red Line and all of that. We know that the Guatemalan Congress declared in 1946 that the 1859 treaty was null and void. The Guatemalan Constitutional Court ruled in 1997 that the treaty was null and void. Does that make the treaty null and void?
No.
Never in life. A domestic law cannot void an internationally recognized treaty or right. And the Guatemalan government knows that very well. In fact, I will quote from you what the Guatemalan Foreign Minister wrote to the Honduras Foreign Minister in the 2nd of June 2000, complaining of the fact that in the Constitution of Honduras, it said that the Zapatilities belong to Honduras. Just like all the Constitution of Guatemala used to say that Belize belonged to Guatemala. And he wrote and said to the Hondurans, that act in the Constitution of Honduras constitutes a unilateral and internal act of the Republic of Honduras that does not produce any juridical effect that prejudices the sovereign rights of the Republic of Guatemala. So let's not fret. The Guatemalans know that their so-called nullification of the 1859 treaty is worthless in international law. We know it, the international community know it, and on that score, we have nothing to worry about. So what do we have to worry about? Because we're worried that we're seeing on our face. You see, when I go out, we are worried. Why? Well, first of all, by the fact that Guatemala has more than 16 million people, we don't even have half a million. That their armed forces number 16,000, and ours is just over 1,000. That they have far greater armaments than we do, and that they have the support of Israeli intelligence and weapons. But that don't scare me, and it shouldn't scare you. Cuba has a population of just over 11 million, while the USA numbers 322 million. But after 55 years of cruel, criminal, and genocidal blockade, the USA, the most powerful country in the world, has been unable to bend the Cuban people to their will. And Obama, who you see there with Raul, just went there and admitted that. Si Cuba venció, Belize vencerá. But how can we do that? How can we win the struggle for survival? The same way Cuba did. Have our people united and prepared to resist and engage in a battle, in a war of ideas rather than of guns. José Martí, trincheras de ideas valen más que trincheras de piedra. Trenches of ideas are more powerful than those of stone. And as to the British and how they've been selling us out and history, I want to hear something about history, right? They didn't begin selling us out in 1963 with the US mediation, Webster. And up to 1981 when they tried to give it from the Moho down. No, it started long before. There was a meeting in 13th of March 1957 with Henry Hanke, the head of the American Department of the Foreign Office, he proposed a settlement with Guatemala, including free port facilities for Guatemala, transit arrangements for developing industries, including oil exploration, and a customs regime. There were further meetings in March when the Guatemalans expressed concern that they will Belize would join the West Indies Federation, and the British told them, no, don't worry, they won't join the Federation. The following day, 14th of March 1957, a meeting of Foreign Office and Colonial Office officials agreed that they should consider, quote, an alteration of a minor character of the frontier as a final trump card to clinch an agreement, provided it had the support of the Belize delegation. Now, the meetings with the Belize delegation happened in November, but in the meantime, British officials discussed among themselves other possible solutions, including, quote, some form of closer association with any one of the Central American countries, well, you know, immediately Guatemala, and a minor rectification, of the border. What did they mean by minor rectification? said amongst themselves, it is not one that ought to be mentioned to George Christ at this juncture. It is potentially too explosive. The British officials said, you can't tell George about this, potentially explosive. Later on, they pretended to be shocked that Mr. Price and the delegation met with the Guatemalan delegation, which was set up already. And once before they had agreed everything I told you to them, and Mr. Price and the delegation listened to the offer but never agreed to anything. And then the British turned the whole thing around, and people now still believe when the governor of those treacherous people said, when they said George Price was selling out the country, stop. You see how they fool? You see how they fool? The French certainly have their number. They call them perfidious albion. Historians, you know. But I am not asking you to believe me. Just the opposite. Don't believe me. Do as I did. Find out for yourself. Read the original accounts. It's there in the archives in London. You know, you can't always believe what officials say in documents, but when they talk against themselves, it's probably true. And many of you don't have to go to England to look at that, because they have donated a lot of those documents to the archives just down the road in Belmopan. And you know the story of British pressure, and I mean pressure, to get us to cede territory to Guatemala, right up to 1981. At that time, we were not an independent country, but a colony. Our population was 145,000. Our annual budget was 155 million. Today's budget is over 1,151 million, $1 billion more. But back then we acted on the world stage as if we were sovereign. We won the support of virtually all states. We won independence